The Detroit Pistons are now 22 games through their season, so just about a quarter of the way through the NBA season. So on today's episode of Locked On Pistons podcast, we'll give our thoughts on the first quarter of the season. Again, in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Ku Cahill. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Cahill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. So I know over on the right side of the screen it says that we're going to start with the games over the weekend. I decided to go ahead and change that up last second. Next segment we will talk about specifically the games over the weekend. Then later on we'll break down the in-season tournament because I see that there's a lot of you guys that are a bit confused on what's going on with the in-season tournament, how it works. Even I on the last podcast I said something incorrectly, so we'll go through it. I'll correct myself. I'll make sure everyone understands exactly how the in-season tournament works and what to pay attention to heading into Tuesday's game against the Milwaukee Bucks for the Detroit Pistons. Also, real quickly, head over to LockedOnDaily.com, hit your, or type in, I should say, your email down below, and you will get a Locked On Pistons daily newsletter along with your Locked On Pistons daily podcast every single day. But let's go ahead and get into this. The Detroit Pistons are officially 22 games through their NBA season. And crazy enough, when I'm recording this, they've actually played the most games in the NBA. They're not tied. They are ahead of everybody else with 22 games. Next team with the most games played is Atlanta, Chicago, the Clippers, and Orlando at 21. So the Pistons have played a lot of games. They played a lot of 3 games in 4 nights. They played a lot of back-to-backs. It has been, even if the degree of opponent maybe has been easier at some points, I'd say the overall, when you take into account opponent and when they're playing them, how many days off you got, how many back-to-backs, I'd say the Pistons have played a decently tough schedule to start the year, especially the first 10 games, but a decent, first 22 game, tough schedule for them. But at this point, they are 9-13. So before we dive into anything, specific, I do want to make this clear. The Detroit Pistons are at 9 wins. They did not get to 9 wins until February last year. Now, I know we shouldn't just use last year as the barometer because last year was an aberration. Last year was the worst season in franchise history. I get all of that. However, this is a lot of the players that were on this team last year are still on this team right now, getting a lot of the minutes. And they've seen a massive improvement over last year. And even, without just comparing it to last year, the Pistons, as you'll see as we get into the numbers, they're not bottom 5 in the league bad so far this year. They're not bottom 8 in the league bad this year so far. They've been a pretty fun team to watch, if you want to be honest. I've seen a lot of people outside of Detroit talking about they're tuning into Piston games because they have some crazy finishes, and sometimes they've shot themselves in the foot and have lost games they shouldn't have won or shouldn't have lost. But because they are in close in almost every single game, and every single game is a thriller, every single game is either they're making a winning play or they're losing at the buzzer. It feels like that almost every single game. A good 90% of their games. It shows that they are much more competitive and they are a better basketball team. So I want to make that clear right out the gate. The other quick hitting thoughts. Now we go a little deeper. The Detroit Pistons, after 22 games, they have an offensive rating of 110.5. That's 23rd in the NBA, so bottom 7 offense. However, defensively, they are 13th in the NBA at 112.2 defensive rating. That is obviously a top 13th offense, or a top 13 defense, And when you look at their net rating, they are 18th in the NBA at minus 1.7. Now, again, I don't want to just compare it to last year, because I know everyone looks at last year as not a real, you shouldn't measure anything last year because of how bad it was. I get that. However, if you just compare it to the rest of the league, the Pistons have been a slightly below average basketball team, right around an average team. And I think before the year, everyone would have taken that. I think now that you're sitting here at 9-13, you're seeing games that maybe they had a chance to win and they didn't, and now you feel a little some fans maybe feel a little worse about that. But before the year, if you told yourselves, hey, after 22 games, the Pistons would be 9-13 and around an average basketball team compared to the rest of the NBA, everyone would have taken that. So I think the Pistons are right on course with where they would like to be. I think maybe they, again, after playing some of these games, you maybe could have won a few of them if you executed better down the stretch. But through 22 games, through a quarter of the year, I think you'd say, yeah, we're right around where we'd like to be. So that's first. Second, now you have to dive into specific players. So as a team, I think they are fine. I think they're probably better. They're definitely better than I thought they would be. I think they are probably better than a lot of people thought they would be. That's first. Obviously, they're also 3-0 in the in-season tournament. We'll talk about this later, but last year they didn't even have an in-season tourney win. They went 0-4. It was bad. This year they're 3-0, and Tuesday they're fighting for a chance to get to the knockout round and win their group. So, again, this year has gone much better than anticipated, I would say, and people should be happy with that. Now, anyways, let's get into specific players. There are 3 players I think have stood out the most after the first 22 games. And these are all positives. I don't want to get into any negatives, because I think the season has gone better than expected. There are 3 players who have stood out through the first quarter of the year. The first player is Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham is making that step for the Detroit Pistons. He's making that jump for the Detroit Pistons. He's playing better and better as the games pass on, and he's really becoming one of the better playmakers in the entire NBA. As of right now, he's averaging the 4th most assists per game. He's at the top of the league in assists total, and this is his totals and assists over the last, 12-ish games. 11 assists, 10, 13 assists, 9 assists, 9 assists, 11, 10, 10, 10, 10, 11. He has 9 straight games of at least, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So he has 11 straight games of at least 9 assists. That is, I believe I saw on the broadcast, first time a Piston has done that since 1989 with Isaiah Thomas. So he's doing things that haven't been done since Isaiah Thomas. He has multiple triple-doubles this year. I believe he has 4 triple-doubles, which has him in the top 5 with triple-doubles across the league. He's been giving more effort than ever defensively. He's had some of the most clutch blocks in the NBA this year. I believe last time I checked, he was top 5 in clutch blocks, which is blocks within the 2 minutes of the final end of the game, within 5 points or so. So he's been giving more effort on the defensive end of the floor than his overall stats are 23.5 points per game, 9.0 assists, 7.2 rebounds. He's shooting 44% from the field, 37.5 3-point percentage, and 81% from the free throw line. His 3-point attempts are up this year. He's shooting 6.2 attempts. That's a career high. He's shooting a lot more pull-up threes this year, and he's making a lot more of them. Now, he still could be more efficient at the rim. That's somewhere he has to improve on. He has to draw more free throws. But he has stood out. He is playing much better, and he's impacting the Pistons' wins, and is part of the main reason why they're having a much more successful season this year. So Cade Cunningham has stood out. Number 2, second player that you have to shout out, and I have so many tabs open on my PC, it's moving so slow as I try to get through all these stats. But Jaden Ivey is the second player. He, after having such a rough second season, up and down. We all know the situation with Monty Williams. It was a rough season last year for Jaden Ivey. And this year, he had to come in and answer the question, can he and Cade Cunningham play together, and can they thrive together, and can they thrive individually? And I think he's answered that question so far through 22 games. He's averaging 18 points a game, 4 assists, 4 rebounds. He's shooting 45% from the field. He's shooting 38% from deep. 38% on 5.1 attempts. He is shooting way better from beyond the arc this year for the Detroit Pistons. He's credited friend Vincent for really working with him over the summer, and you can clearly see that start to pay off for the Detroit Pistons. And also, the main thing with Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey is the fact that when they are on the floor together, they have been thriving. The main thing we've talked about on the podcast is that when one of them leaves the floor, they have to try to find some way to thrive without them. But when they're on the floor together, and again, my tabs are moving so slow because I have about 20 tabs open on my PC. But right now, their net rating, when they're on the floor together, is good. It's what you want to see from them. Once my PC stops freezing, I'll tell you the exact net rating. But they have been good together. As soon as one of them leaves the floor, that's when they start to have a problem. But when they're on the floor together, they have proven that they can play well together and they thrive with each other. Right now, they have a net rating of minus 0.3. Okay, they have an offensive rating of 115.0. They have a defensive rating of 115.48. So, and remember, this team has a regular net rating. The team overall has a net rating of minus 1.7. So, they're playing good with them on the floor. They're playing just about even basketball with them on the floor. And they both have been really good individually. So the main question of the offseason, I'd say through the first quarter of the year, you've had it answered. Your backcourt of the future is proving to be the backcourt of the future. And now you need to build around them and make life easier on them, which I think Asar Thompson will do as he gets more and more minutes and gets more, stamina underneath him. But the third player I want to shout out through the quarter of the season that has really impressed for the Detroit Pistons and have stood out is Malik Beasley. Malik Beasley has been by far the best acquisition the Pistons have done, I'd say maybe the last 4 years. He's been exceptional for the Detroit Pistons. I have to say that I think he maybe should be like top 5 and 6 man of the year, thoughts so far through 22 games. He's averaging 16 points a game, 43% from the field, but 40% from deep on 9.0 attempts. He is coming off the bench and letting it fly and is scoring in his limited amount of minutes. That's the kind of player the Detroit Pistons have needed for a while. A guy who can just come off the bench, be an immediate spark plug, be a reliable scorer, a reliable spacer, and what he's providing, not just from a scoring aspect, but from his gravity. Defenses are giving him a lot of respect, which is opening up drives for Jaden Ivey, opening up drives for Cade Cunningham. They're playing extremely well together. Malik Beasley has been absolutely tremendous for the Detroit Pistons. An absolute home run of a signing by Trajan Langdon. And I know you can't do it already, but I would extend him already. I know you can't. It's against the rules, but I would find some way to do it anyways, and because that's how good he's been. That's how good he's been. I very much would rather the Pistons re-sign him in the offseason than trade him at the deadline for value. He has been tremendous, and that's not even discussing the in-the-locker-room stuff he's been for the Detroit Pistons. Now, on the next episode, we are going to be joined by a friend of the show, Bryce Simon, and we'll dive further into quarter of the season. We'll talk more about negatives, too. We'll talk about things they need to improve on and where they stand as a team with decision-making for their roster moving forward. We'll discuss that in the next episode. But through just a quarter of the season, I think fans should feel pretty positive. I think fans should be pretty happy with how this team has played. They're 3-0 in the in-season tournament, about to play one of the biggest games of the last few years, Tuesday against Milwaukee Bucks, with a chance to go to the knockout round and a chance to go on to Las Vegas. They are seeing their young backcourt thrive after a tough year last year. They're seeing both of them get better and play well together. They are seeing their veterans that they have acquired over the offseason have a much bigger impact than any veterans they have gotten on this team in the last 4 years. Overall, and you're seeing them, JB Bickerstaff, I should say, get the most out of them defensively, out of a non-defensive talented roster. So, is there areas that they need to clean up? Yes. Can they be better? Do they need to get better? Yes. But overall, the sentiment around the team should be positive through a quarter of the year. And if they play like this, if they win 9 games every 22 games, where are they going to be at 9, 18, 27, around like 35-ish wins? I think that people would be happy with that. Around 33 to 35 wins, I think people would be happy with that this year. So, quarter of the season, I think everyone should be pretty positive and happy with where this team's at. But let me know in the comment section down below, do you guys feel happy or positive about how this team has looked through a quarter of the year? Or are you pessimistic and feel like the team is not where you'd like them to be? Let me know why you feel a certain type of way in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka When we come back, I want to get into the games that happened over the weekend. A win on Friday against the Indiana Pacers, or Saturday. On Friday against the Indiana Pacers, and then the loss to the Philadelphia 76ers on Saturday. We'll discuss that when we come back. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA and get on your way to being your best self. How do you stay cozy during the winter months? For some, wrapping in a blanket with a mug of hot chocolate or watching a movie with the family is the best way to spend the month of December. Therapy is a great way to bring yourself some comfort that never goes away, even when the season changes. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Get 10% off your first month. One more time, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. NBA to get 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Also, make sure you guys go to LockedOnDaily.com, type in your email, and you'll get a Locked On Pistons daily newsletter along with your Locked On Pistons daily podcast. Again, every single day, Monday through Friday. I've had a lot of feedback with the newsletter. A lot of you guys seem to have liked it, really enjoy it. You get it emailed to you every single day, again, Monday through Friday. So if you haven't signed up for it already, there's been a lot of positive response, so go check it out. And you can get even more content daily for your Detroit Pistons. All right, so let's get into this weekend's games for the Detroit Pistons. They went 1-1. One of the games was an in-season tourney game. That one was against the Indiana Pacers in Indiana, which is a tough place for the Detroit Pistons to win. They've struggled there over the last few years. And then they had a game against the Philadelphia 76ers on Saturday. So let's start with Indiana. They won this game 130-106. And I think something that happened within this game that Pistons fans really enjoyed, because they haven't been on this side of the coin, I'd say, in a long time. The Pistons were stunning on the Pacers at the end of this game. Like, they were just dancing on them. They were laughing at them. They were running up the score. They were dancing on them. They were just, they were pressing them with like 30 seconds left and laughing about it. Like, the Pistons have been on that end, the other end of this, multiple times over the last few years. Multiple times. Nonstop. Teams hitting a three and then shimmying on them, laughing, isoing their players, blowing them out, keeping starters in to blow them out even more. Like, that's happened over the last few years way too many times for the Detroit Pistons. And in an in-season tourney game, to go 3-0, they got to do that against the Indiana Pacers. And I think a lot of fans loved seeing that. But to get even deeper into this game, again, Cade Cunningham, I thought, played absolutely exceptional within this game. Absolutely exceptional. 24 points, 11 assists, 6 rebounds, 10 of 19 from the field, 4 of 6 from deep. And again, just did it without getting to the free throw line. I don't understand what he has to do, man. I really don't. I don't know. I truly don't know what has to happen for him to start drawing free throws. There was a stretch in the third quarter where he drove to the rim 3 straight times, took an elbow or hands to the chest each time, and didn't get a foul call on any of them. I thought on the last one, at the end of the third quarter, I thought he was going to get teed up for a technical because he was quite frustrated going at the referees. I don't know what he has to do, but it just doesn't seem like he's ever going to get respect from the officials. I mean, it is what it is at this point, I guess. But an exceptional game from him. He played really well defensively as well. And didn't have to play a lot of minutes in this game because the Pistons got away. So, really good game from him. Jaden Ivey, again, the backcourt mate, like we just talked about, also had a fantastic game. 23 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 8 of 13 from the field, 3 of 8 from deep, and 4 of 4 from the free throw line. Jaden Ivey continues to play extremely well off of Cade Cunningham. He gets a lot of threes up, and he's been making a lot of threes. He's taking advantage of the space that Cade Cunningham's creating for him. And Jaden Ivey is coming into his own. He's finding the exact way he needs to play for this team. He's thriving off ball. He's getting into gaps quickly off ball. And then when he's on the floor by himself, he's becoming better and better at not only running the offense, but picking his spots in the half-court offense as well. It still needs to get better. And to be honest, I think a lot of it isn't really on him. They need help when one of him or Cade are off the floor. So I think there's just a lot of stress on him when he's on the floor by himself. But even with that, he's getting better with it. He's giving more effort defensively. He took it to Bandit Mathurin. Mathurin usually, let's just be honest, throughout their career so far has really taken it to Jaden Ivey. And this time, Jaden Ivey got the better of him and really stunning on him in this game. So I'm sure that made Jaden Ivey feel pretty good. And listen, the backcourt led them to this victory. 24 points, 23 from both Ivey and Cade. And then the third player we talked about in the first segment, Malik Beasley. Absolutely fantastic. Off the bench in just 28 minutes. In just 28 minutes of action, 25 points. Only 1 assist, only 1 rebound. He doesn't come in to pass the ball. He doesn't come in to rebound the ball. Like, he doesn't come in to play make. He doesn't come in to make plays for others. No, he's coming into the game to let it fly. He's coming into the game to shoot the basketball and shoot it well. He shot 10 of 14 from the field, 5 of 9 from deep. He's been absolutely exceptional for him. I know we talked about in the first segment, but those three guys, Cade, Ivey, and Malik Beasley, led them to this victory over the Indiana Pacers. They really had no answer for any of them. And to give another player a quick shout out here, Jalen Duren had one of his best defensive games of the year in this game. He had 4 blocks in this game. 2 of them were chase downs, and then there were 2 blocks within the half court when he went straight up, met the guy at the rim, blocked the shot, and another one where he had some quick reactions, rotated, and blocked a shot after someone got beat off the dribble. So one of his best defensive performances of the game. He was a plus 21 in his 26 minutes played in this game, 5 of 8 from the field, another double-double, 14 points, 12 rebounds. Jalen Duren is I'll at least say this for Duren. He's flashing more defensive competence. Now, as we get into the next game that we'll talk about, you'll see why I say that. But at the very least, you are seeing him flash more defensive potential every other game, I'd say. Like, you get a handful of games so far through the first 22 games of the year. I'd say there's been at least, 4 to 5, 4 to 6 games where he's really showcased that, there is something in there defensively, but the problem is it just hasn't been consistent. But this was one of the games. He was really engaged defensively. He played really well around the basket, and the Pacers didn't really try to get him away from the basket, and the Pistons did a good job of keeping him around the basket and allowing him to just be a defensive force in the paint, and he was. He was engaged. He played really well. He was one of the main reasons as well why they were able to win this game. Everyone played well within this game. I really do feel like it. Like, Holland had a nice game. Simone played an okay game. Asar continues to work his way back. We just talked about Beasley. Stu continues to be Stu. Doesn't need a lot of points in the paint. Doesn't need a lot of points in general to really feel his impact for the team. Tobias had an okay game. He had 16 points and 8 shots. That's actually pretty good. And then Tim Hardaway Jr., does his thing. 8 shots, 6 threes, 10 points. Everyone contributed to this win. They played really well offensively. Finally had a really, really good offensive game while also being good defensively. They need those games. Too often they've been good defensively and bad offensively, or bad offensively and good defensively. So this game, it was probably the best game of the year for the Pistons. Played excellent on both ends of the floor, and really did a good job, to be honest, guarding Tyrese Halliburton and not allowing Pascal Siakam to go crazy against them again. And even Miles Turner was shut down in this game. He didn't really have anything to do in this game. He caused problems for him last game. Didn't do that this game. So, fantastic game against the Indiana Pacers for the Detroit Pistons on Friday. And then Saturday, here comes the controversy. On Saturday, Cade Cunningham was a late scratch to this game. We don't know why he was a late scratch. They said he was out because of the hip injury that he suffered when he fell on the floor. I forget what game exactly that was against that. Oh, the Hornets. The Hornets game when he landed on his hip. They said he was out for that game. He was scheduled to play, but again, a late scratch. We didn't get a great explanation for why, which has caused a lot of fans to be pretty upset that he was ruled out, either questioning whether he asked to not play or if the training staff decided that he shouldn't play on this back-to-back to be ready for Tuesday. Either way, the overall consensus, or the overall thought, I would say, amongst the Pistons community was that the Pistons punted on this game to be ready for Tuesday. And I will say this. J.B. Bickerstaff did bring up the point that the Pistons, or any NBA team, should not have to play back-to-backs after playing a cup game, which does make sense. If you're trying to make the cup games more important than just a regular season game, and you want the cup games to be treated more serious than a regular season game, asking a team to give it even more energy and more, competitive fever in that game, and then the very next night have them play another game, doesn't seem right. You're kind of taxing them a lot. You wouldn't do that in the playoffs, and if you want them to treat it like the playoffs, probably shouldn't do that. So I do think J.B. Bickerstaff is 100% correct with that. I think that is completely fair. And it's definitely something the NBA needs to get on, needs to fix somehow. That shouldn't be happening moving forward. That is pretty dumb. I will agree with JP there. However, I will say this. The team is not good enough for them to just be punting games for Tuesday. Because they're not just playing for an in-season tournament. They want to make the playoffs. They want to make the play-in. And games like this, just punting on a random game, could come back to haunt you at the end of the year. So I understand they want to be ready for Tuesday. They want everyone ready at full strength for Tuesday so they can try to make it out of their group play. They want to treat the in-season tournament pretty seriously, and I'm completely on board with that. But that shouldn't come at the cost at punting other games, because at the end of the day, your end-of-season goal is still to make the play-in. It's still to try to make the playoffs. That's what their goal is. So, especially with how they've started the year. They're 9-12. The East is pretty bad. They have a lot of teams struggling. you shouldn't just be punting games. So I understand completely why fans are frustrated with that. And within this game, again, like I mentioned earlier, Duren had one of his worst defensive games of the year. He really struggled with this in this game. He only played 12 minutes in this game. Jaden Ivey really struggled, but that's, again, because he was without Cade Cunningham. The team, I think you're seeing every single game. I mean, I feel like a broken record. Every single game they play without Cade, they are going to struggle offensively. It's looked horrible without Cade offensively. When one of them leaves the floor, when they're both active and one of them leaves the floor, it's a struggle. The Pistons need more ball handling. They need more playmaking. They need more shot creation. Now, they're hoping that Asar Thompson can maybe be that. He played well, actually, against the Sixers and provided a lot of, actually, let me not say a lot, a decent amount. I'd like to see him ball handle a little bit more, but maybe they're expecting him to be that. Either way, I hope that they address this during the year, somehow through a trade or something, but they desperately need more playmaking and more shot creation, because that's what's holding this team back desperately. When they don't have Cade or Ivey on the floor, it's a massive struggle. A massive struggle. So they need to address that, but this game, they basically punted on this game against the Sixers, and I understand why fans are upset. You shouldn't be punting games when you're chasing the play-in spot. And then they were especially upset, and I get this as well, with how badly Jalen Duren played defensively. Offensively, again, I don't really hold anything against them. They only had one real playmaker. It's hard. But defensively, they just didn't give any effort defensively. They just punted on it. So scheduling conflict was pretty tough. I agree. But still, you can't punt on a random game. You need every win you possibly can get. And a Sixers team that is struggling, and without Embiid, you need to win that game. And Paul George really struggling, you got to win that game. You can't just punt on this one. So that's my thoughts on the games over the weekend. Let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. How you guys feel about the games from over the weekend? When we come back, a lot of you guys have been confused about the in-season tournament. Even myself, I confused myself in the last episode. So we're going to break down exactly what you should be paying attention to for the in-season tournament when we come back. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Again, I've used FanDuel for years now. I even used it today for NFL Sunday. Incredibly fun to use, super self-explanatory, and most importantly, again, super fun to use. So again, that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right, so there's been a lot of confusion about how this in-season tournament works out. So we're going to spend this final segment really breaking it down and explaining it so all of you guys understand completely what's going on and what you need to be watching for on Tuesday for the Detroit Pistons. Now, I'm going to bring this up on the screen. You guys are not going to, for those of you guys watching on YouTube, you won't see my face for a second. Because I want this to be on the screen so you guys can see this. This is what really matters right here. Let me go ahead and bring this up. There you go. You can see it now. All right, so here are the in-season tourney standings. Each group, there are multiple groups within each conference. You have 3 different groups, and then you have a wild card. So if you win your group, you're a top 3 seed, and you go on to the knockout round. If you can squeeze in as a wild card as well as a 4th team. Whatever team is the second, if you're the next best record amongst the teams that didn't win win the group, obviously, okay? So right now you got the Orlando Magic, the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Atlanta Hawks leading their cup games. Now, right now, the Pistons are in the same group as the Milwaukee Bucks. However, the Pistons are the team in the wild card. Why is that? Because the Milwaukee Bucks, if you see right here, have the point differential over the Pistons. The Bucks are plus 29. The Pistons are plus 28. Now, that is not going to matter come Tuesday because the first tiebreaker for the Detroit Pistons, for any team that ties, is a head-to-head matchups. So, and the Pistons, the tiebreaker won't really matter in general, but just to explain, if the Pistons do tie, that will come into play later. But when they play the Bucks, if they win, they're going to be 4-0. They'll win their group play, so it won't matter. Just win the game and you're straight. However, if they don't win, the Bucks will be 4-0, and the Detroit Pistons will be 3-1. So therefore, the Bucks will win the group play, and now the Pistons have to compete for that wild card position. How can they get the wild card? Well, there's only two other teams that they are competing with to make the wild card. It is the New York Knicks, who are 3-0, and the Boston Celtics, who are 3-1. Now, when it comes to Tuesday, you should be rooting for the Orlando Magic to defeat the New York Knicks. You should be rooting for the New York Knicks to lose this game. Why is that? Because Orlando and the New York Knicks are within the same conference, or in the same group play, except the Orlando Magic have a plus 60 point differential. The Knicks only have a plus 15 point differential. So if the Knicks win and they go on to 4-0, they'll make it, but then unless the Magic lose by 70 points, they're going to beat the Pistons in point differential. They'll have close to 20 points more than the Pistons. And if the Pistons lose against the Bucks, obviously their point differential is going to go down. So you do not want the Orlando Magic to lose this game. You want the Magic to win outright, their group, and then have the Pistons competing against the New York Knicks in the wild card position. The Knicks only have a plus 15 point differential. So as long as the Detroit Pistons don't get blitzed by the Milwaukee Bucks, they need to maintain a better point differential than the New York Knicks, who are, again, at plus 15, at also 3-0. And if they lose, they would be 3-1, just like the Detroit Pistons. Now, the other team is the Boston Celtics. The Celtics have already played all of their in-season tourney games. They're 3-1 at a plus 23 point differential. So now, not also do the Detroit Pistons need to be rooting for, not only do the Pistons fans need to be rooting for the Magic to defeat the Knicks, you need to be rooting for the Pistons to not lose by more than 5. Because if they do lose, they cannot lose by more than 5, because then the Boston Celtics will get that wild card spot because they'll have a better point differential, if you understand what I'm saying. So, and you'll see that right here when you go to NBA.com and you scroll down to, where is it? Let me scroll down so you guys can see it. Here you go. In the event two or more teams are tied within a group, the tie amongst the teams will be broken according to the following tiebreakers. Head-to-head record first, and then point differential, and then total points played in group play. So, you want the you need to be rooting for the Orlando Magic to defeat the Knicks. You want the Pistons to win outright, obviously. You want them to just beat the Bucks and make this easy. But if the Pistons do lose, you want the Magic to beat the Knicks, and you can't have the Pistons get blown out. They need to lose a close game, a very close game, if they want to make it onto the knockout stage. So, that's the explanation with that. I'll take it off the screen now. The last thing I want to make clear, they do not go to Vegas on Tuesday if they win Tuesday. That was a mess up that I had. They do not go straight to Vegas on Tuesday. They go to Vegas if they win on Tuesday, then win out the knockout rounds. After the knockout rounds, then you make it to Vegas. You have to win through the knockout rounds, and then you make it to Vegas. So, hopefully the Pistons make it out the knockout rounds. That would be great. And they move on to Vegas. But that was the mistake I had. They do not move on to Vegas immediately after winning. They don't move on to the knockout round immediately after winning Tuesday. Or the Vegas, I should say, immediately after winning Tuesday. But there you go. That's the explanation I can give you guys. Hopefully that, makes it pretty, pretty simple for you guys. It is somewhat confusing. I'm not going to lie to you. It confused me last week. But if you want to just keep it simple, win the game against Milwaukee and you're good. If you lose, then you got to start rooting for some other things. You want Orlando to win, and then, like I explained earlier. But that's the explanation with the in-season tourney. So, do you think the Detroit Pistons will make it to the knockout round? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Until next time, oh, hold on. I almost forgot to tell you guys. Head over to LockedOnDaily.com, type in your email, get that Locked On Pistons Daily newsletter. If you want to be a Locked On Pistons insider, text the number down below. You'll get text with me individually. You can text with me one-on-one. I'll be your personal Pistons insider. And also head over to my YouTube channel at Kuka Hill, where I just posted a film breakdown of Asar Thompson's return. I'll be posting a lot more videos moving forward. Head over there at Kuka Hill on YouTube. Now, that's all I've got for you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there, everybody. Till next time, peace out.